Right. Good afternoon, everyone. I am Anderlyn T. Clavero, Dr. Anderlyn T. Clavero, and Master Teacher 1 from Kalayaan National High School, DepEd, Pasay. Good afternoon po sa mga Pasayenyos dyan at mga kapwa ko guro sa DepEd, Pasay. Good afternoon to our Science EPS Supervisor Dr. Maripaz Mendoza. I'm sorry, surprise ko kayo na meron pala akong webinar ngayon. By the way, so magandang hapon din po sa mga kasamahan ko sa Kalayaan National High School and then sa mga kasamahan ko rin po sa TUP Manila. Thank you, Ate Marivic Taniedo, for an opportunity to have this speaking engagement po. So, start na po tayo. Okay po. So, I was tasked to talk about inquiry-based approach, Science Investigatory, through Science Investigatory project. So before I start my talk about the IDL, okay, allow me to present to you a video presentation about IDL.
In the Order of the Phoenix, the fifth of the Harry Potter series, Dolores Umbridge takes over as the Defense Against Dark Arts teacher and instantly transforms the classroom into this textbook-based, standardized, test-focused classroom. And Harry questions whether this will prepare them for fighting against Voldemort, he who must not be named, and that's when Umbridge punishes him. And he ends up forming his own school within the school, called Dumbledore's Army. Now, Dumbledore's Army is purely inquiry-based. While Harry is the teacher, he is mostly the guide on the side, empowering students to ask questions and find the answer themselves. They rely on each other and on various spell books to solve problems and answer questions. It is a space of verification. And while the process might seem messy compared to Umbridge's standardized approach, students learn at a rapid pace because they aren't wasting their time repeating what they already know. This is an example of inquiry-based learning, although it takes place in the UK, it's probably inquiry-based learning. Inquiry-based learning has existed for thousands of years. Both Socrates and Confucius used variations on their own inquiry-based format. It's a critical component to the scientific method of the early Enlightenment, and it was a core idea of both Dewey and Montessori's ideas around student-centered learning. Padaste shares a model of the 4 phases of inquiry. It starts with orientation, which is often a form of discussion. It's where they become aware of the key idea. And from there, it moves into conceptualization, where students generate questions and they define a hypothesis. This leads to an investigation phase, where students explore, experiment, and interpret data, often in a way that's flexible and dynamic. It can even seem kind of cyclical. And then finally, they move into a conclusion. Heather Banshee and Randy Bell define 4 different types of inquiry that you can do on sort of a spectrum from teacher-centered / structured into learner-centered / open. Level 1 is confirmation inquiry, where the teacher teaches the concepts, creates the questions, and models the process for students. They basically just kind of go along with it to learn about the process. Level 2 is structured inquiry, where the teacher creates the initial set of questions and kind of shares the procedures. But then the students walk through the rest of the inquiry process by collecting and analyzing the data and drawing their own conclusions. Level 3 is guided inquiry, and this is sort of the beginning of what we typically think of as inquiry. This is where the teacher provides the initial research question or questions, but students own the research process and the experimentation. And then level 4 is open inquiry or true inquiry. Here's where students formulate their own questions, design their experiments or their research, and collect their own data or facts that they then share in their findings. Now, here are a few places where you as a teacher can start with inquiry-based learning. In a language arts or social studies class, you can do a Wonder Day or Wonder Week project where students develop their own questions and move through the inquiry process on their own. You can also do a Genius Hour project where students not only ask their own questions, questions, but design their own product as well. In math, you could have students explore a concept and develop their own problems, which is one of the things I love about the what can you do with this process of Dan Meyer. And in science, you could do something like a science fair project or a Mythbuster style approach to testing an urban legend. The key idea, though, is this. If we want students to own their learning, if we want them to remain curious, if we want classrooms to be bastions of curiosity and wonder, well, then we need to have something like inquiry-based learning in place so that they learn how to ask great questions, find the answers, and share their results with their peers.
Right. So since we are done viewing the first video clip about the inquiry-based learning, I'm pretty sure that most of the teachers watching here are using inquiry-based learning in teaching. Now, based from the video presentation, let us discuss what are the 4 pieces of inquiry. Now, we have here the 4 pieces of inquiry. The first one is orientation. So when we say orientation, this is a form of discussion wherein the teacher is the center of the discussion. So si teacher yung nakafocus na nagdi-discuss on certain concepts. So that is orientation. Next is conceptualization. When we say conceptualization, students generate questions and formulate their hypotheses out of that situation that is presented by their teacher. For the investigation, students explore and interpret data. So this is done during the experimentation process. The student is recording their data during the experimentation process, and then they are the one who interpret and explore their data. For the conclusion, students find the answer to the problem out of the data that they have derived from that experimentation. They could now draw conclusion. Next, for the 4 levels of inquiry. For the 4 levels of inquiry, we have there the confirmation inquiry. When we say confirmation inquiry, the teacher teaches the concept, creates the questions, and model the process. So this is focus. The focus is on the teacher. And the next is structured inquiry. When we say structured inquiry, it creates initial questions and model the process. So the teacher creates initial questions and model the process. For the guided inquiry, it creates the initial questions. Students own the research process and own the experimentation. For the open and true inquiry, students formulate their own questions, design their own experiments, and collect their own data and share their findings. From these 4 levels of inquiry, we are molding our students as well as immersing their minds to be scientifically literate. It also leads to the formulation of research project or science investigatory project. So this is the connection of the IBL or the inquiry-based learning to the formulation of the science investigatory project. Now let me show you again another video about inquiry-based learning in science.
And what's exciting about the inquiry model is that we go far and above what the curriculum expectations are. Kids are invested in their learning and they're able to transfer and apply what they're learning in school to the real world. Inquiry-based learning allows the students to be the thinkers. Teachers begin their lesson with an idea of where they want to end in mind, but really give the students the opportunity to drive it to that point. So your job, keep working through your procedure. When you all agree, I'll come back and check in with you. We have guided
guided inquiry, where teachers are guiding students through the curriculum.
And find that 5 milliliters.
And then making a shift into student-driven inquiry, where students use that as prior knowledge and build their own inquiries around that. We want them to be building the foundation for higher level inquiries starting right when we have them in kindergarten.
And once someone finds something, make sure that you tell the rest of the paleontologists. We found this skull. You found the skull? The teachers developing the guided inquiry model based on the curriculum, but then the students are shaping where they want to go with it. We're going to go through our lab sheet quickly, and then we're going to get into our experimental group. They were told that 2 scientists had a mix-up in their lab. They had some seeds, they had some eggs, and now they don't know which are which. The students had the opportunity to decide what they thought would be helpful experiments for us to get to our answer. Instead of opening with a bunch of information and facts and details, the students are given a problem, and then they're the ones who get to drive the experiments.
I'm trying to see which one's eggs and which one's seeds, but we don't know. So we're trying to figure out strategies that we can do. We make our steps, and then we test and see what happens. We've been planting them, and we think the seeds will grow and the eggs won't. I think they'll get bigger. Yeah, so once they get bigger, it would like crack open.
Teachers are guiding with questions to really get students thinking and learning how to question themselves.
How might that help us figure out which are the eggs and which are the seeds, floating or sinking?
You might think that eggs are heavier than seeds. I like doing it this way because you get to touch what you're actually doing instead of just looking at it.
We started with the inquiry model in science, and as we started to see students getting excited about finding answers to deeper level questions, we saw the power and how that could be implemented throughout the school day.
If you grab a tube of paint, there's no real connection to the science behind making that paint. I want them to see that art is everywhere, science is everywhere, math is everywhere.
And we are making paint out of household items today.
We started in the art room, following every step of the recipe.
Kids need background knowledge and some conceptual understanding of things.
How much salt do we need?
A quarter cup.
A quarter cup. So how many tablespoons is that? 4.
The next step is, what do I want to wonder about now? How do I want to adjust this?
You have to form your questions so that you're not taking over their creative process, but helping that creative process. As a scientist, how am I going to change or modify this paint so that it works?
So I want you to test that and remember to document what you did.
We wanted to change the texture because ours was a bit too lumpy for our liking. And we added a lot of ingredients.
For the inquiry to be successful, the question has to be appropriate. And so we really had to teach students what questions would work, how to model them.
My question that I had is how can I get this to be in thinner paint so I can have like one straight line so it doesn't splatter everywhere.
The exciting piece of learning this way is that we don't always know what the outcome will be. It's a lot of risk involved in allowing your students to kind of just do some discovery learning on their own.
I learned that if you're making paint, use liquid substance to make it thinner, but if you mix too many of the wrong things, it might just blow up. I think this is pretty good.
We want kids to be critical thinkers, to be problem solvers. Kids are getting to dig deep into the cause and effect relationships that occur in every field. When we open that up, it just empowers them to love learning.
We really don't have a limit. We get to learn how to do this stuff with our own ideas. It took a lot of time, but we did it.
Okay, so moving on. So I'm pretty sure that all science teachers here are doing their hands-on activities. Of course, we have a lot of hands-on activities across level from junior high school, from elementary rather, from elementary up to senior high school. Of course, we could not take it away from a science subject that we would not be able to have hands-on activities on the explore part, right? So I'm pretty sure that all of you science teachers are doing their part in order for the students to have more hands-on activities in performing their lessons. Okay? Of course, let us not forget that learning is still best when we are doing it. Learning by doing. So what is inquiry-based science? So inquiry-based science adopts an investigative approach to teaching and learning where students are provided with opportunities to investigate a problem, search for possible solutions, make observations, ask questions, test out ideas, and think creatively and use their intuition. In this sense, inquiry-based science involves the students doing science where they have opportunities to explore possible solutions, develop explanations for the phenomena under investigation, elaborate on concepts and processes, and evaluate or assess their understanding in the light of available evidence. This approach to teaching relies on teachers recognizing the importance of presenting problems to students that will challenge their current conceptual understanding so they are forced to reconcile anomalous thinking and construct new undertakings. So how does inquiry-based science help students? Inquiry-based science challenges students' thinking by engaging them in investigating scientifically oriented questions where they learn to give priority to evidence, evaluate explanations in the light of alternative explanation, and learn to communicate and justify their decisions. According to Newman, 2004, it could be summed into scientific inquiry requires the use of evidence, logic, and imagination in developing explanation about the natural world. Does inquiry-based science look different in an elementary classroom than in secondary classroom? Are there any difference? Of course, there is no difference. The principles are the same. The need to excite and engage students' attention so they want to investigate the topic is critically important at any age. However, the way teachers actually teach, it has to be more hands-on, directive or guided, and concrete for younger children. So of course, whatever would be the age or the level, it should promote more hands-on activities. And of course, for younger learners, it should be directive and concrete. Students also should be guided. So the teacher acts here as a facilitator. So I have here a illustration, a diagram about scientific and technological literacy. So I adapted this slide from Dr. Tan from UP NISMED. All right. So what comprise a scientific and technological literate student? When could we say that a student is scientific and technologically literate? If and only if a student performs scientific processes and skills, understanding and applying scientific knowledge, and developing and demonstrating scientific attitudes and values. So these skills must be manifested by a scientific and technological literate student. So ito yung tinatawag natin na mga STEM students. Of course, we could not make a student na magiging STEM siya kung hindi tayo magkakaroon ng magandang foundation from their early years. So as you can see down below, the inquiry-based approach is anchored to Gestalt psychology. Inquiry-based approach also linked to problem or issue-based learning. Kung matatandaan niyo yung problem-based learning, yung mga project-based learning, naka-anchor din siya sa inquiry-based approach. So, inquiry-based approach, which is linked to Gestalt psychology, is a learning style theory. On the other side of the diagram, it is also anchored to constructivism. So constructivism, it is a multi-interdisciplinary approach and connected to science, technology, society approach, or contextual learning. It also involved social cognition learning model. So they are interconnected with one another. This 21st century purpose of science must be relevant to the interests of students, providing them with opportunities to explore the connections between science and everyday life. Students are encouraged to be interested in and engage with the role of science in the world. Through the investigation of real examples of the application of science, students gain insight into the tension and dependencies between science and societal, environmental, and ethical factors. This simply puts inquiry as the heart of learning sciences and aims to support the students' understanding of sciences by providing them with opportunities to independently investigate relevant issues through both research and experimentation. The use of open, student-led investigation alongside scaffolded teaching of research skills and the integration of science processes skills allows students at all levels to learn what it means to do science, solve problems, and develop thinking skills. Notably, these foundations are important for students who are going to continue in science, as well as for those who will not continue beyond secondary school. The cognitive ability of creating meaning and structure from new information and experience are referred as science process skills. These skills are an important and necessary means by which the learner engages with the world and gains intellectual control of it through the formation of concepts and development of scientific thinking. So this illustration that I flash on the screen is the SAPA. SAPA is subdivided into two, which is the basic science process skill and the integrated science process skill. SAPA, or Science a Process Approach, defines science process skills as a set of broadly transferable abilities, appropriate to many science disciplines and reflective of the behavior of scientists. SAPA group processes skills into two types of basic and integrated. The basic is the simpler one, while the more complex one is the integrated science process skill. So let us discuss first the basic science process skill. First is observing. Observing is the use of the senses to gather information about an object or event. For inferring, the making of an educated guess about an object or event based on previously gathered data or information. For measuring, the use of both standard and non-standard measures or estimates to describe the dimension of an object or event. For communicating, the use of words or graphic symbols to describe an action, object, or event. Classifying, the grouping or ordering objects or events into categories based on properties or criteria. Predicting, stating the outcome of a future event based on a pattern of evidence. Moving on to the integrated science process skill. First is the controlling variables. Being able to identify variables that can affect an experimental outcome, keeping most constant while manipulating only the independent variable. Next, defining operationally, stating how to measure a variable in an experiment. Next, formulating hypotheses, stating the expected outcome of an experiment. Interpreting data, organizing data, and drawing conclusions from it. For experimenting, being able to conduct an experiment, including asking an appropriate question, stating a hypothesis, identifying and controlling variables, operationally defining those variables, designing a fair experiment, conducting the experiment, and interpreting the results of the experiment. Last, formulating models, creating a mental or physical model of a process or event. So, when we combine all these things, basic science process skills and integrated science process skill, it will lead to the promotion of the students' higher order thinking skills. So as you can see here, students' higher order thinking skills are critical thinking, creative thinking, problem solving, decision making, which are all applicable in a real life context. Of course, this is the product or the byproduct of both basic science process skills and integrated science process skill, which are all scientific inquiry skills. So kapag na-develop na natin sa students natin itong skills na to, madali na natin may integrate sa kanila or gagawa sa kanila ang isang investigatory project. So let us move on with the scientific attitude and values. So we have here the first one, the intellectual honesty. So for the intellectual honesty, the proposed title or the proposed research topic should be original. Of course, hindi naman po pwedeng mag-copy and paste tayo ng isang research paper for the sake na magkakaroon tayo ng isang research topic. And pwede tayong makulong for that, for plagiarism. So we could adopt or we could manipulate some variables there. Pwede naman, ang research kasi is, pwede natin siyang i-modify, pero hindi natin pwedeng kopyahin in toto kung ano yung gawa ng isang author. There should be manipulation of variables. Okay? Then for the objectivity, must be objective in declaring results of the experiment, and judgment is based on observable phenomena and not influenced by emotion or personal prejudices, whatever. Okay, so ibig sabihin, when we are doing our objectivity of the research, hindi tayo pwedeng basta-basta ima-manipulate natin yung data na kailangan umaayon sa kagustuhan natin. What if pumalpak yung experiment? Hindi naman ibig sabihin na kapag halimbawa di natin nakuha yung desired outcome, palpak na experiment. Maybe there are some external factors that affect your data, and that could be placed on the recommendation part. Okay? Next is perseverance. Continue to do the experiment or investigation despite of difficulty and failure that might arise. So kailangan when you want to finish something, when you are doing the science investigatory project, whatever would be the hindrances in performing your experiment, laging palpak, dapat meron kang 100% perseverance para mabuo or mahanap mo yung accurate result na gusto mong makuha. Okay? Assume responsibility. Moral, social, and personal responsibility and accountability of a scientist to all of his work must be observed. Okay. Taking initiative, of course, you should have an initiative. Dapat nanggagaling sa sarili mo, magkaroon ka ng initiative para matapos yung SIP. independent learning. You could not always ask your teacher, what will happen when I add this in our experiment? You could go into the library or surf the internet for searching review of related literature in doing your experiment, analyzing and evaluating information, procedures, and claims, making decisions based on sound judgment and logical reasoning. So I assume that sabi na natin niya sa assuming responsibility. So what processes used by scientists in solving problems can be used by students when doing science investigation? So these are the different ways on how the scientists solve their problem. So my favorite scientist, Thomas Alva Edison, okay, discovered the incandescent bulb by trial and error. So his discovery is the tungsten filament. So that is trial and error. So out of trial and error, there is a chance or there is a possibility that you might invent something. By accident, Rubber King's problem. So who are the scientists? That is Goodyear. Goodyear named after from the rubber. Intuition. So this is the most famous equation by Einstein. E is equal to mc squared. Relationship between matter and energy. So that is proposed by Albert Einstein. Chance or serendipity. By chance lang. Nakabuo agad sila ng isang product. So that is done by Perkin. What discovery is that? The synthetic dye. And then, another thing for chance or serendipity, you have there the post-it notepads by the 3M. And then, a great number of scientists use the experimental method to search for answer. Of course, we are doing science and we need to have experimental method in searching for the answers for these things. So let me tell you a story about an investigation, a science investigation by a scientist. So the history of incandescent bulb by Thomas Alva Edison in 1878 and to 1880. Many inventors had tried to perfect incandescent lamps to subdivide electric light or make it smaller and weaker than it was in the existing arc lamps, which were too bright to be used for small spaces such as the rooms of a house. Edison was trying to come up with a high resistance system that would require far less electrical power that was used for the arc lamps. This could eventually mean small electric lights suitable for home use. So this is the problem during that time. So what did Thomas Alva Edison do? So in January 1879, at his laboratory in Menlo Park, New Jersey, Edison had built his first high-resistant incandescent electric light. It worked by passing electricity through a thin platinum filament in the glass vacuum bulb, which delayed the filament from melting. Still, the lamp only burned for a few short hours. So failed pa din. Then what he did, he tested thousands and thousands. So try to imagine that. What scientific attitude did he possess? That is perseverance. He tested thousands and thousands of other materials to use for the filament. He even thought about using tungsten, which is the metal used for light bulb filaments, but he couldn't work with it given the tools available that time. So one day, Edison was sitting in his laboratory, absent-mindedly rolling a piece of compressed carbon between his fingers. He began carbonizing materials to be used for the filament. He tested the carbonized filaments of every plant imaginable, including baywood, boxwood, hickory, cedar, flax, and bamboo. So for your information, my dear teachers, I know that all of this wood, they are carbon-containing compounds. Kaya nga hinanap niya yung he rolled a piece of compressed carbon kasi meron ng carbon dito sa mga ginamit niya for that plant, no, available. So Edison decided to try a carbonized cotton thread filament. When voltage was applied to the completed bulb, it began to radiate a soft orange glow. Just about 15 hours later, the filament finally burned out. And then further experimentation produced filaments that could burn longer and longer with each test. So finally, Edison have been given by a patent number. So see, out from the trial and error, Edison was able to come up with an incandescent bulb. And out of perseverance, so hindi gano'ng kadali yung pinagdaanan ng incandescent bulb. Ganon din si Edison. So, I have here a sample student investigation. So, for example, student investigation, ito yung mga simpleng SIP na pwedeng ipagawa ng mga teachers sa ating mga students. So, let's say the title of the study is Comparing the Metal Elements in Leaves of Different Mango Varieties. Okay. So, definitely, as a starter, pwedeng magkaroon muna tayo ng 3 statement of the problem. Statement of the problem number 1 are the metal elements sodium, potassium, calcium, and magnesium present in the leaves of one variety of mangoes the same as those in other varieties. Third, is there any difference in the kind of metal elements found in young and adult leaves of the same variety of mango? Now, moving on. So this is now the hypothesis. Again, when you say hypothesis, this is the temporary answer to the problem. For hypothesis number 1, magnesium, calcium, sodium, and potassium are found in mango leaves. Hypothesis number 2, the metal elements present in the leaves of one variety of mangoes are the same as those in other varieties. Hypothesis number 3, there is no difference in the kind of metal elements found in young and adult leaves of the same mango variety. Okay, as simple as that, pwede nating ipagawa yan sa student natin. But we need to guide them. Science teachers, please guide our students in constructing their problem as well as their hypothesis. Of course, these kids would not be able to write a good statement of the problem and hypothesis kung hindi din natin sila i-guide. So what are the essential components of the science investigation in an experimental method? Of course, the problem. We need a problem, specific questions to be answered. And then for the hypothesis, a prediction about the relationship between the variables that can be tested. So, kanina I have presented how to write a problem and how to write a hypothesis. And then for the variables, we have the 2 kinds of variables here. The independent variable and the dependent variable. Independent variable, or the IB, is the variable that is purposely changed by the experimenter. So pwede siyang baguhin, no? The dependent variable is dependent on the independent variable, the variable that responds to change or manipulation. Constant are all factors that remain the same and have fixed value. Let's say you want to have a fixed temperature. You're going to do the experiment at 25 degrees Celsius, so that is constant. Or you want to have a constant volume ng isang chemical na gagamitin mo. Let's say 50 ml. Kung 50 ml yung isa, dapat 50 ml all throughout. Okay? Next. Scientific inquiry is used by scientists to make empirical observation. and develop evidence-based explanation of the natural world. So that is scientific inquiry. Inquiry immerses students in conducting scientific investigation in familiar and meaningful context. So this is the aim of the IBL. So we are immersing our students through inquiry. So inquiry, kapatid ng inquiry is science, is the formulation of the science investigatory project. Of course, a student could not make their own science investigatory project if they do not have a clear knowledge about IBL. So both scientists and student researchers are doing inquiry. So parehas. Because they are engaged in scientifically oriented questions, give priority to evidence in responding to questions. Of course, they formulate explanation. Why do this thing happen? Okay? Connect explanation to scientific knowledge. From their explanation, on that experimentation, anong existing scientific knowledge ang meron na pwede nilang i-anchor doon yung kanilang result. And then communicates and justifies explanations. So what scientists and students do when conduct science investigations? So this is the matrix between a student who is performing a research and a researcher doing a research. Of course, both of them observe. Parehas naman sila nag-observe. A student uses the senses aided by technology. But then the scientist uses senses or use senses aided by more sophisticated technology. So mas high-tech yung gamit nila. For experiment, students change something, what happens, while for the scientists, they manipulate and control variables. For collaborate, work with others in the class, while the scientists or researchers, other scientists and researchers. So nakikipag-collaborate sila na ideas sila with other scientists and other researchers. Of course, they are recording their data. Students record data in journals, while the scientists or researchers in the field notes, data sheets, and printouts. Measure, both of them measure. Students uses the lab equipment, scientists uses scientific instruments. For sort or classify, students sort things by color, size, shape, and mass. For the scientists, they use classification keys and field guides. Compare, students compare biggest farthest changes in condition that will happen if there will be an increase or decrease in temperature, in pressure, etc. Analyze how, why it happens. For the scientists and researchers, data analysis. For the evaluate evidence good enough. And then for the scientists or the researchers, it is done by peer review. Students, when they are doing their SIP, they could tell it to others. But then scientists, they are sharing it through scientific conferences and research papers. Now, according to Dr. Tan of UPenn-Smith, there are changes in the paradigm of scientific method. So traditional model, we know very well that the scientific method is a step-by-step process. Step-by-step. Observation, formulating hypotheses, experimentation, data gathering natin. And then after the formulation of the data, recording the data rather, we have the formulation of conclusion, drawing conclusions and recommendation. But then sa contemporary model, since sa traditional method or traditional model, step-by-step process, sa contemporary model, we could do it in a cyclic manner. Okay? Why cyclic? So, based on this second bullet and the contemporary model, scientists can adjust their method of inquiry in the middle of an investigation. What if halimbawa, nakapag-formulate ka na ng problem, pero nagkaroon ng problema yung ginagawa mong problem as you go on with the experimentation. So babalik ka uli doon sa previous step. Pwedeng bumalik ka. That is a cyclic process. So that is for the contemporary model. Whereas, on the traditional model, this is only a step by step, and the method must be planned out in advance of the inquiry. Okay? So in addition to that, in the traditional model, the scientific method, there is a single method for doing science. But then, in the contemporary model, new knowledge in science is produced by creative acts of the imagination allied with the methods of scientific inquiry. So, out of that, the traditional model natin na scientific method, we allied with the methods of the scientific inquiry, which was discussed a while ago. So how can we develop the investigation skills of our students? Number one, we could have activity 1, analysis of research abstract. It will be very difficult in our part, teachers, that we will require agad-agad si bata na magsulat ng science investigatory project. What could you do? Initially, pwedeng bigyan nyo muna sila ng research abstract or research capsule, sample of research. Maghanap kayo ng mga sample of research na aakma sa grade level ninyo. Of course, you could not give a sample research abstract, let's say pang senior high school, tas junior high school yung gagawa. Depending on your level and also on the level of your students. Hindi naman sila lahat ay fast learners or scientifically inclined. Am I right? So, in this activity, students are given an abstract. And then what are they going to do? So babasahin nila yung abstract and then they will identify the essential components of an investigation. Anong i-identify nila? Out of the abstract, they will identify the problem, the hypothesis, the rationale, the experimental design, the result of the experiment, conclusion, and recommendation. Kasi sa abstract, makikita mo naman doon lahat. But then yung mga statement of the problem, of course, hindi mo naman makikita. But let your student analyze how are they going to formulate a problem out of the abstract given to them. So that tawag nila doon sa senior high school seminar namin nun is the research capsule. So yung mga research capsule ibibigay sa bata and then sila na yung mag-identify ng problem and so on and so forth. So that is for activity 1. Okay. So i-guide muna natin sila, of course. Next, for activity 2. Integrate science investigation in teaching, not just for competition. So first is a structured or the guided discovery. The problem is given, the procedure is given step by step. So that is the structured. For the semi-structured, the problem is given and the procedure is designed by the student. Meron kang specific problem, bahala na yung student mo na mag-design kung anong procedure ang gagawin nila to solve the problem. For the unstructured, open-ended, sila na lahat yung gagawa ng task na to. Students identify the problem, formulate hypothesis, and design the procedure to test the hypothesis. So, nakikita natin dito, yung sa formulation ng bata ng SIP is nandito na sa unstructured. But then, let us be reminded that we could give initial activities first before immersing thoroughly the students in writing the science investigatory project. So what are examples of a structured investigation? So let's say which are acid and bases from amongst given set of materials. For the semi-structured, what happened when vinegar is mixed with baking soda? For unstructured investigation, launch a rocket using the product of the reaction between acid base as fuel. So sa unstructured, gagawa na si Bata ng rocket dito. Bahala na siyang mag-design. Okay? Next, ano pang example na structured investigation? How much water can a polymer, example, sodium polyacrylate hold? Semi-structured investigation, what are possible uses of sodium polyacrylate? For the unstructured investigation, determine which diaper brand can hold the most water. Okay, so those are just a guide for you teachers how to construct structured investigation, semi-structured investigation, unstructured investigation. Pero nasa sa inyo pa rin po kung paano nyo gagawin yung mga bagay na to when you are inside the classroom. So, other topics for semi-unstructured investigation, ito na yung leading for the formal research paper or science investigatory project. Let's say the degree of pollution in terms of total solid, investigation of the effect of household wastes on the dissolved oxygen, the effect of acid rains on plants, comparative study of the ripening effect of different farm products of banana, determination of contribution of tricycle to the particulate pollution, comparative study of properties of soaps made from different fats and oils. Ma'am, how about yung mga invention? Halimbawa, yung paggawa ng mga portable na ganito, portable charger, etc. Pwede din po yun. As long as na there would be a clear procedures na ikaklaro nyo sa bata kung ano yung gusto niya mangyari when he or she is doing the science investigatory project. So, ang trend po kasi ngayon, mas ginugusto kasi ng mga judges yung inventions na nagagawa ng mga bata. So noon, na-experience ko sa mga science competition, medyo patok pa yung mga determination of the metal, etc. Pero ngayon po, mas patok sa judges yung paggawa ng mga inventions ng mga students. Okay. The next, ano tong sinishare ko sa screen? So this one is adapted. So I adapted this worksheet that I have learned from my seminar in senior high school sa aming mass training noon. So this was given by Ma'am Bim to us. So paano po nakakatulong itong worksheet na to? Identifying the inquiry and stating the problem. Anong ibig sabihin nito, ma'am? In doing the science investigatory project, makakatulong tong matrix na to para makita natin kung ano yung idea ng student natin. What is the research interest? Ano yung interest nila? Okay? And then the formulation of the research title. And then let them do the background of research. Kahit isa, dalawa, or tatlong references or 5 na magso-support dun sa background ng research nila. And then allow them to formulate a research question. Kahit sabihin natin 2 or 3, scope and delimitation, hanggang saan lang yung study, benefits and beneficiary of the study, sino magbe-benefit, and then finally the statement of the problem. So this matrix was designed by Ma'am Bim to help research teachers, particularly in senior high school level. Actually, pwede rin naman to sa junior high school, para yung bata makapag-conceptualize siya ng isang research paper. Hindi naman kinakailangan na ipapasa agad ng student natin sa atin ay yung buong chapters 1 to 5 na, no. So, pwedeng dito muna mag-start sa matrix para malaman din ni teacher kung feasible yung study na gagawin ni bata. And then from there, hindi naman mawi-waste yung effort ng student. Kung halimbawa hindi siya ma-approve, konti lang or minimal lang yung effort na binigay ng bata kasi matrix pa lang naman to. So kung maganda na sa paningin ninyo yung ginawa ng bata based on this matrix, pwede na niyang ituloy yung complete parts of a research paper. So of course, yung mga ibang topic dito, kailangan i-guide din natin yung student natin on how to do that. Okay. So, paano kung halimbawa pang gusto ng bata kung talagang fast learner yung bata, pwede na natin ilaban sa mga Filipino ISEP Science Investigatory Project. So, what are the things that they need to follow? Students study some projects of Filipino ISEP winners. Pwede mag-research siya yung mga winning piece na mga SIP na nakapasok sa Intel ISEP. So, they are expected to arrive at the following observation. Number 1, follow the process of scientific inquiry. And then, they are based on real-life problems. Enable students to perform independently. Dapat yung bata yung gumagawa. Of course, with the consultation or guide of the experts as well as the teachers. Involve science experts. So, sabi ko na nga po kanina, science experts as advisors or consultants. Kung kinakailangan i-test yung isang product, let's say in DOST, in De La Salle University, in Adamson, mas maganda po yung may testing para kapani-paniwala po yung gawa ng student natin. Had proper documentation of data collected, complied with laws and regulation in use of handling chemicals and biological specimen. So kung natatandaan ko po before, sa may mga Intel ISEP forms kaming ginagamit, merong part doon na pinipirmahan kami kung kami ba ay gumamit ng hazardous chemicals, biological specimens. So, kailangan i-specify din po doon. Alright, so ito na yung favorite part, lapit ng matapos. So, I would like to end my talk with this quotation. No? Children must be taught how to think, not to what to think. So dati, kung alam na ng bata kung ano yung steps ng scientific method, sana, ang challenge natin, mga teachers, science teachers, or science investigatory project advisors is how to help the students to do those processes when they are doing their research on their own. On their own, but still, we need to guide them in some aspect. So, I think malapit na po akong mag 1 hour. I hope I have imparted something po sa inyo. Maraming salamat po sa pakikinig. And nakalimutan ko po palang batiin ang aking Sir Principal. Sir, magandang hapon po. Maraming salamat po sa mga nakinig sa akin ngayong hapon na to. In behalf of my Kalayaan National High School family, maraming salamat po. Thank you. Okay, so magsasagot na po ako ng mga ilang katanungan. What changes for you see happening with inquiry-based approach learning in science in the advent of the new norm in schools? How do we work with it and not around it? Okay. So since hindi tayo makakapag-perform ng mga experiments sa loob ng classroom, maybe at home they could do some investigations. Yung mga nakikita lang nila, mga simpleng bagay, pwede nilang gawin yun sa loob ng bahay nila. Not necessarily na lalabas sila. And the next question, ano pong sabi? Ano pong pwedeng gawing experiment sa mga kindergarten pupils? Siguro yung mga wala kasi ako idea sa kindergarten. Yung mga household chemicals po, siguro yung mga vinegar, tapos yung baking soda, pwede po nilang gamitin yun as simple experiment at home. Actually, marami po sa YouTube din na makikita po kayo. How do we teach SIP with the current pandemic? So, yun na nga po yung problem natin. I know it would be very difficult to teach the science investigatory project with the current pandemic. So, pwede tayo mag-online teaching. Pwede nating ituro sa kanila yung step-by-step process sa paggawa ng SIP, katulad ng anong ginawa ko kanina. Pwede ninyong ibigay sa bata online yung abstract, and then magbigay kayo ng instruction kung anong gagawin nila. So, yun. How can we integrate teaching science to other subjects during the time of pandemic? Siguro may mga part na matatouch yung integration ng science, depende sa topic ninyo. Halimbawa kung araling panlipunan tapos may COVID-19, pwedeng magbigay kayo ng example about paano na-acquire yung virus, saan nanggaling yung virus, gano'n. Pero depende po doon sa topic kung paano nyo po siya integrate. Kung halimbawa, yun nga po nasabi ko kanina, kung AP, araling panlipunan, ano po, yung mga current issues, current events, pwede nyo ipasok po yun. Questions pa po? Which one is more feasible to do? Applied or life science? Actually, ako as a research advisor for almost a decade, mas gusto ko yung applied. Kasi yung applied, walang masyadong problema doon eh. Sa life science kasi medyo mabusisi po talaga. Kailangan pa ng mga permit na so and so. Okay na po? Okay. Salamat po sa pakikinig. I hope marami po kayong take away. Doon po sa mga teachers sa gusto pang mag-inquire sa akin tungkol sa SIP, I could give you my email po. Okay po. So maraming salamat po sa pakikinig. Salamat po muli, Bibal, for the opportunity. Kahit may pandemic ay nabigyan ako ng opportunity para makapag-share ng aking knowledge about inquiry-based approach through science investigatory project. Maraming salamat po.